How you guys doing? Good? Good. Let's get you up to speed. Haven't really done too much exciting since you last saw it. Got the inner fenders on and the core support, radiator all hooked up, and all my wiring sort of temporarily done. None of that's permanent, so we got to go back and reroute that so it's all at least pretty to look at and not going to get caught on anything else, but it's good enough for now, I think. So let's see if we can get this thing fired up. Got ourselves a new brake booster and master cylinder all hooked up there. That's bench bled, but not bled at the wheels yet. Got to go back and do that. And we got rid of the Duraspark box over here, but we're still going to use the 12 volts from that to run our HEI. I know if there's any diehard Ford guys there in the comments, I probably shouldn't have gotten rid of the Duraspark distributor, but I did. We'll see how long this lasts. Still have everything else. Might be going back to the original setup on that, because I hear these HEIs are really not that good. I don't know myself because I've never run one, but it was cheap, so I guess we'll see how long it lasts. Cheap things, I guess, really don't ever last that long, but I bought it, paid for it, it's in there, we're going to use it for now. Got the electric choke hooked up on the Edelbroke for now. Was able to use the original choke wire from the Motorcraft card because that had an electric choke on it as well. And then we're just grounded to the body of the choke itself. And I've not really touched the idle or the fast idle adjustments over here yet. We'll wait till she's running good to mess with that. And I do have a cheap fuel pressure gauge and fuel pressure regulator plumbed in there, again, temporarily right now. This is all going to get changed, and I'm probably going to go with some braided fuel line on here eventually. At the moment, this is kind of just set up for proof of concept. Full disclosure, I did try to start this already, but kept running into an issue. Now, after watching that, I'm sure most of you will agree with me. Sounds kind of like she was flooding out, and that's exactly what was happening. This Carter pump, fuel pump that I have in here, this mechanical fuel pump, puts out, I think, according to the specs, between 6.5 to 9 psi of pressure. And the Edelbrock carburetors don't like more than 6.5 psi according to the instructions. So then logic would dictate if we got more than 6.5 psi coming out of this pump, and the float and needle assembly on this carburetor doesn't like more than 6.5 psi, I'm sure it probably was flooding out. So like I said, proof of concept, we got a fuel pressure gauge and a cheap regulator. We'll see if we can dial this down to where it needs to be to get this thing to happily idle. And this is just a no-name Amazon mechanical regulator. Like I said, probably going to toss this thing when I'm done with it here and get a much better one, or hold on to it for future projects, I don't know. Either way, it's got settings from 1 all the way up to 5.5. I have no idea what any of that means, so I just set it to 3 and we'll see what happens. Don't have my steering shaft installed yet. I got to come back and do that, but no point in doing that yet because I don't have the power steering system bled. And in order to properly bleed that on these trucks, you actually have to take the power steering box, or rather the steering gearbox, off of the frame and tip it upside down to get all of the air out of it, because the lines enter on the bottom of the box, so you end up with a big air bubble at the top of the box there when you try and bleed it. And I know that's counterintuitive to what most of you probably know about bleeding power steering systems, but that's the only way that I've ever successfully done it here, and it makes sense if you think about the fluid dynamics of it. I don't know about you guys, but in my experience, air seems to rise whenever it's in another fluid, and the geniuses at Ford decided to put these lines down here on the very bottom of the steering gearbox, which means, like I said, when you try and bleed it, you end up with a nice big air pocket up here. So the only way that I've found to remedy that is to unbolt it from here and tip it, so this is the highest point on the box, and then she burps and it all comes out and sucks in a bunch more fluid. And as far as I know, that only applies to the 78 and 79 half-ton 4x4 trucks. Everything else is somewhat normal. So once we get this thing running nicely, we'll come back and take care of that. Obviously, I haven't put a timing light on it yet, but do have my marks that I want to use highlighted down there. Right now it's set to roughly 10 degrees Witherspoons before top dead center, and we'll see how that works for us. Then once she's running, we'll come back, toss a light on it, and get it dialed in. And we do have her all topped off with some fresh 15W40 and a bottle of zinc additive just to try and keep the cam as happy as possible. So I think we're all ready to try and fire it up. I'll meet you guys back out here in the morning because it's a little late right now, and with the open headers I don't want to piss off the neighbors. So I'll be right back.
Tried to make an idle adjustment there with just the idle screw, but that wasn't cutting it. I had to go back and lean out the choke by about 3 notches and then make a high idle adjustment on the high idle cam as well. But that took a little bit of digging through the Edelbrock manual again to figure that out, but you'll hear the next time we fire it up, I did get that idle brought down to where I think it needs to be.
Okay, so we know that she runs. Let's move on to getting the power steering taken care of, and then we'll get that Borgeson steering shaft hooked up. Hopefully get her backed out of here, and then I want to get the shop rearranged so we can move this closer to the welder and start working on an exhaust system. Alright, this is the hokey ass setup that I got going on to bleed the power steering system. The gearbox is just kind of rested up there, teetering on a stack of whatever I could find to rest it on. And we got it ratchet strapped to the frame. Alright, we got our pump all filled up. This takes ATF type F for fluid. I guess you could probably just put regular old power steering fluid in there too and it would be fine, but with the amount of research that I did when I first bought this truck years ago, with all the power steering problems that it had at the time, everyone says to use ATF type F. That's what it calls for, so that's what I'm using. And so usually what happens if you don't have the gearbox positioned like I do right now, what'll happen is that air pocket that gets caught in there just causes the whole system to burp, and you'll end up with just a volcano of power steering fluid coming out of the top of the pump, and it just soaks the engine bay, and hard to clean, fire hazard, all that good stuff. So hopefully we can avoid that and it works well for us, and hopefully I didn't burn up the pump by running it sort of dry those first couple of times that we fired it up. And I think before I actually fire it up, I'm just going to disconnect the distributor and just crank it over and see if that sucks in any fluid without starting it first. I don't remember the exact steps and how I did this the last time that I did it, so I'm just really trying to avoid that pump just belching fluid all over the inside of the engine compartment here. Loosen that a little bit. It's not an airtight fit, but just to be safe, I guess. And we'll crank her over and see what happens. It looks like that did suck in quite a bit of fluid. I'll get that filled back up. And I rechecked my lines down there. I actually had the pressure side come loose when I was farting around trying to get that gearbox all lined up. So let's refill this and try that one more time. Alright, that's top back off. We'll give it one more good crank. Check the level again afterwards. Alright, I think we're good to try and fire it up. We'll see what happens. Hopefully I don't have to spend the rest of the day cleaning up power steering fluid. Alright, once she's fired, you'll probably see me just farting around down there. All I'm doing is turning the input shaft on the gearbox back and forth just to simulate turning the wheel lock to lock, just to try and force out any air that's left in there. Well, I think we got it first try, guys. Level's right where it should be, right there. Might be able to add a little bit more, but definitely sucked a bunch in there like you saw. Hopefully you saw that. And there's no volcano of it, in the engine compartment here, which is great. Tell you what though, that does make me a little bit nervous, just in case there's ever a problem with it. It's like if that ever does belch fluid out of the top for whatever reason, it's going right on the headers, and that's gonna start a fire, I feel like. But I don't know. Not really sure what to do about that, besides just, get the system working as good as I can, and then pray nothing ever happens to it. Although I am thinking about switching this out to a Saginaw pump in the future. I think that would be a fantastic upgrade for this thing. I just have to get the bracket and find a pump, whether I just order one or try and find one from pick and pull. One way or another, I think that's probably going to be the route that we're going to go in the future. Who knows, this thing still might not be happy once we hook up the steering shaft and put it under the load of actually moving the front end. I couldn't hear it making any kind of noise when I was just cycling the input shaft back and forth, but with the open headers I may not have been hearing it whine, I don't know. But for now I think it's good, so let's go ahead and get that steering shaft installed and go from there. So this is the new steering shaft that we're going to put in there. It's a Borgeson is the brand name. It's double U-joint on both ends. Got rid of the rag joint, don't really want to have to deal with that anymore. So I just figured we'd spend the money and get a good one. I'm just looking at this trying to figure out which end goes where. I suppose it probably doesn't matter all that much as long as it fits in there and does the job. But I know we're going to have to cut this to size. As far as I know, they come a little bit on the long side just so they can fit in multiple applications. So I'm going to go bolt that steering box back to the frame. We'll get a measurement, cut this one down, and then get it installed. So right now we're about, 26 inches tip to tip on the steering shaft, and we need, I think it's about 19 inches on the chuck there. So we'll separate this and we'll get it cut down to the right size. I'm going to say this is the side that's supposed to go up to the steering column, and this side goes down to the box because it extends this way. And so obviously we'll have to collapse it so it fits in there and then extend it a little bit to get it to go into place. So let's get that cut down. And so it looks like to separate this, you got to slide the boot down, and then there's a little Allen screw that holds the one shaft captive inside the other. At least I think that's all it is. We'll find out here. Yep. I'm gonna try and figure out what size that hole is real quick, just so we can drill it and retap it once we get this cut. So I want to keep that in there at whatever length it ends up needing to be. Alright, so we need it to extend out to about 19 inches, like I said, but we have to be under 18 to get it to fit into place and then extend out. Alright, so after staring at that and contemplating it for probably way too long, I think we decided to cut the sleeve at 13 inches, and then that should give us enough room to slide it in place, extend it to the 19 inches that we need to make the connection, and then still have plenty of support with this piece inside of the sleeve. And these were my marks here. I tested 15, 14, 13, and 12, and I think 13 inches is probably about the best. So I think we're going to go cut that on that little bandsaw that I bought months ago and have never used. Might as well test it out and see how that works. Doesn't really seem to be a high quality piece of equipment, but it might do the job. Let's try that again. For a cheap little $70 Chinese bandsaw, that did a pretty damn good job. I like that. Let's get it fit together, we'll get that hole drilled and get it installed. Alright, do you guys know off the top of your head what size hole I need to drill for a 1032 tap? 5/30 seconds, you say? Alright. Well, I'll trust you, but if you're wrong, I'm gonna be pissed. Oh, let's see. Say somewhere right about maybe there. Nice and off center. Perfect. All right, 5:30 seconds. Hope you guys are right. Nice. The only 5:30 seconds drill bit I have is dull as hell. No, I don't have a drill bit sharpener either. Well, when in doubt, just force it, right? Perfect. Wow, that is really off center. That really walked on me. Don't know that there's really even any point in trying to use that at this point. Son of a bitch. Should have used the drill press. Oh, I feel like this tap is just going to break off on me. Because it probably is. Oh, I can feel it twisting already. That's not fun. Come on, baby, you can do it. Perfect. We did it. Now the real question, is that even worth it? Yes, even an off-center locking screw is better than no locking screw. I might have to file the inside of that down. Yeah, you know, that'll just barely work. We're right on the edge where we need to be, but I should probably pull that back out and grease it all anyway, shouldn't I? Looks like it's got plenty of grease on it, but more never hurt. Alright boys, well after all that, I think we got her where we need to be. Fully collapsed, we're sitting at like 17¼ inches, so that should be enough to get in there. And then we got plenty of room to extend it out to where it needs to be. That's about 20 inches. I mean, that alone lets us know we're good, but... And that's about the 19 that we need. So, looks good to me. Let's go toss this thing on. At the moment, I'm really not too concerned about clocking a steering wheel because there's just that tiny little 3-spoke, like racing steering wheel in there anyway, so there's really no... I mean, I guess you could clock it so one spoke is right up and down, but I don't care about that right now. So let's go toss this on. Well, there we are. Steering shaft all installed. That took out quite a bit of the slop that was in there from the old rag joint. That was pretty much just plumb wore out, but as you can see, there's still a good deal of slop in there. That's just from the in the gearbox itself. That's pretty worn out. Thinking I might try and replace that with a blue top at some point in the future. It's fine for now, but especially after just going through the whole rigmarole to bleed that, I don't really want to replace it now unless I absolutely have to. So, plus that's just another like $500 expense that your billfold can't really handle at the moment. So we'll just deal with it as it is. But I think it's time to try and fire it up and see if she still moves, if the old C6 is up to it. Alright, well, I got the boat out of the garage. I think we're kind of cleared for takeoff here. I'm gonna fire this thing up and see if we can back her out and get her moved into the main bay over here behind us. Alright, we got her moved. As you can see, that went a lot better than I thought it was going to. Power steering worked flawlessly when I had to back out and make a Y turn in the yard here. I didn't hear it whine. It might be making a little bit of noise. Really can't hear much besides, you know, the engine with the open headers on it. But once we get an exhaust welded up, we'll test it again, make sure it's happy. But like I said, in my experience, if you don't bleed those right, it's a volcano of power steering fluid, ATF, whatever you put into it. And then as I pulled it in the garage, I noticed we had a little bit of a coolant drip. I believe that was just the lower rad hose. I loosened up the hose clamp on there just a little bit and it just came pouring out. So I kind of repositioned the hose, tightened it back up, and I think we're going to be all right now. But I think we'll probably fire it up one more time, just make sure it's not a small water pump leak. All right, I think we're going to cut this video off here. We got the first start in there and then kind of just focused on the steering system with the steering rod installation and the bleeding of the power steering system. It's only Saturday right now, so I'm definitely going to just jump right into another video tomorrow on Sunday, and I think we'll probably focus on getting an exhaust system welded up for this thing. Got the old pipes just sitting out there. I had way too many, you know, cuts and bends and shitty welds in there. Just kind of want to start fresh, and we'll just probably, I don't know, I might save the tailpipes off of there and use them again, but I think I'm going to go with more of a straight out the back type of a thing instead of having the 45-degree angles on the back of there like what was there. I just ordered some glass packs and these pre-bent exhaust tubing kits. You know, it's basically 2 boxes like this, that one and that one. Hopefully we can weld something up and make something work that's a little bit better than what was on there. No, it probably doesn't look much more organized, but tell you what, it does feel really good to have everything kind of shifted around in here and a little bit more room up where it really matters. Plus this winter, then I'll just be able to back this in and out of the garage once I get the hood on there and everything covered up a little bit more. And then we'll have a lot more room to start working on sleds again. Alright guys, I think that's going to do it for now. If you have any questions about the power steering system on this, again, just drop them down in the comments. I'll answer it the best that I can. But like I said, the way that I did it there, as far as I know, is the quickest and easiest way to ensure that it's actually going to work for you. And again, that does not apply to any other vehicle besides the 78 and the 79 4x4 half-ton trucks. If it's anything other than that, you can probably just put it up on jack stands and turn the wheel lock to lock, bleed the air out. But again, that's because of where the lines enter on the gearbox. That, like I said, just kind of shitty design by Ford, but that's the reason that you have to do it that way. And again, if anybody owns a 78 or a 79 4x4 half-ton with that setup and you found a better way to do it, please, for the love of God, let me know. Alright guys, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video for the exhaust system. Have a good one.